saying, hey, we're going to go out and procure more insurance, or hey, it's okay if we indemnify and defend the customer with this. Those type of major decisions, you need to identify who is going to make the authorizations and who's going to work directly with legal, and it will speed things up. It shouldn't be your sales reps who are doing any type of contract stuff with your lawyers. It should be your leaders, your managers, your directors, your VPs, whatever the levels are. Try to pick as high level as possible. Your sales reps, you don't want them getting caught up in all this stuff, and they don't care about contracts. So that's with expectations and authorizations, right? Everybody knows, here are the 5 things or 10 things, whatever you want to do for your company, that we commonly see in contracts. Who has the right to say, I approve, we'll leave the language as is, or we accept the customer's language, and then make a map. Here's the 10 things. And then the other piece is to make sure that the right people are talking to legal. You don't want sales reps. You want the VP makes this decision. The VP is the one that escalates these contracts to the legal department. Because here's the thing that everybody misses, is that as a legal person or contracts person, you are sent 100 contracts from everybody across the floor. Do you want the legal person to decide who gets priority? No. You want your salespeople or your executives to see all the contracts come in, and they decide, hey, Cassandra, I want you to focus on this contract from Nike, and it's going to be great revenue. I know they're going to ask you to indemnify and defend. I know they're going to ask you for this, so this is what you should do. I can move through contracts like that when you give me direction. Same with a contract manager. Use tools like Google Sheets or Smart Sheets that gives visibility to many people about, here's the contracts that have been submitted, and here's the status, here's the priority, so everybody's on the same page, and that when you submit a contract to the legal department, there's not like this hole it's all going into, and it's dark, and no one knows what goes on in there, and sometimes a contract surfaces, and it's not the right one. So there needs to be a dialogue and engagement, and you need to treat the legal department and the contract person as you would any other department, which means procedures, authorizations, and expectations. You can do KPIs too. Remember, if you want somebody to speed up the review of the contracts, you've got to understand what they're reviewing, what's getting in the way and bottlenecking it, and perhaps you need more people. Lawyers aren't always the best job at doing this type of stuff, actually. When you're talking about contract reviews, negotiations, and edits, you can pluck some kind of nerdy person off the floor and teach them, send them to, I don't know, some school or whatever, teach them how to read these contracts and grow them into a contract manager. The contract managers are great. They can do all these red lines and all this stuff. You don't even need a lawyer. Use the lawyer for employment laws, high-level decisions, all your disputes that are coming in. That's what you can get an ROI on your lawyer. So, quick 10 minutes with the disclaimer and the admin. Now let's get to your 5 edits, okay? And these are my go-to. Of course, there's going to be many more edits and many more deals, blah, blah, blah. But from a high level, when we're talking about that shipper-carrier contract or that shipper-broker contract, these 5 spots always come up as the hot spots that everybody kind of gets hung up on. Everything in between, I mean, they're edits, okay? Governing law, I don't give a shit about governing law. When I'm trying to move contracts through and I'm trying to get a deal done for my salespeople and for my executives, the little provisions I don't worry about as much. But everybody has a different style. I'm just telling you high level what some people do, like myself. 1, okay? And this is the first 2 rules are if you're a broker, okay? When you're looking at these contracts, don't pretend to be a carrier and don't control the carrier. When you're looking over the edits and when you see a contract, you don't even have to be a contract person. You can see it right away. You open it up and it says it's a shipper carrier contract or it defines your company as a carrier and you're not a carrier. See, you can sign those contracts if you want to. Everything, you can do whatever you want as an executive if you decide to take on the risk. But you need, from an operations standpoint, you need to have a SOP in place when you open up the contract and it says the word carrier, identified your company as a carrier, or identifies you as a broker, but you control the carrier all throughout and you look like a carrier. High risk of that type of situation. So usually I tell my customers to look at the potential revenue you're going to get from that shipper and balance how much risk there is there when you're holding yourself out as a carrier and you're not a carrier, or holding yourself out as controlling a carrier when you are not controlling the carrier and you don't want to. The carrier could do something along the road and you're exposed to liability. It could cost a lot of money. It's probably our highest risk in our industry. So you want to reserve that type of risk for the revenue that comes in. If you're looking at a spot shipper, I mean, you're not going to make that much money. Why put yourself out there for that much risk? Again, do what you need to do, consult with a lawyer, figure this out, talk to your insurance broker. Everything depends. I'm just giving you guys high level guidance. So those are the first two rules. Don't hold yourself out as a carrier. Don't pretend to be the carrier. And if you do, make sure you have revenue that makes up for the risk. Third, indemnification, the hottest one. Indemnification means if the carrier does something and the shipper gets sued, or, yeah, you could be the carrier or the broker. Carrier does something, shipper gets sued for it. Shipper wants you to step in and pay for the defense of their lawsuit and the damages. And this is a big deal in our industry. Your insurance will cover it. You always want to talk to your insurance broker about all these provisions and find out what they think about some of this stuff and build it into your operations. You can see if you only have 5 high things that you're focused on, it's a good start to streamlining contracts and red lines, right? All right, indemnification. First of all, of course, your insurance is going to have some guidance on what they want you to do, but most of the time I tell people, cap that shit. So put in there somewhere that up to a maximum of your insurance limits or $1 million, put a cap on it, okay? And make a decision whether you decide it's appropriate to even be there. We are not, brokers and carriers are not insurance companies. So shippers can, and they have their own insurance. We don't need to be the industry's insurance companies, okay? Sorry, shippers, you can get your own insurance. I mean, it's your goods that we're transporting, it's your risk, right? Cap it, narrow it if you can, and that is going to be something you're going to build into your procedures. It's going to come up in every contract. So be ready for it, right? Number 4, insurance. So insurance is going to be, they're going to list out insurance. Sometimes some customers go crazy with the amount of insurance they want, and you kind of got to narrow it and whittle it down because carriers and brokers are not insurance companies for shippers' goods. And you have to know the shipper you're working with and their goods and the value of their shipments because they sometimes don't tell you. And then you move in $1 million shipment and you didn't know and you used a $100,000 carrier for the brokers out there. Or you're a carrier and you only have $100,000 in insurance and you didn't really know they were going to give you a $500,000 shipment. So you've got to know more about the shipper and be ready for worst case scenarios. You guys can see that I forgot to tell everybody, we're talking about full truckload contracts. LTL, a lot less risk, more standardized. Final miles, more standardized, easier, not as much risk. These full truckload contracts are the ones that make it really difficult. Insurance. So we figured that out. So first you got, don't pretend to be a carrier. Don't control the carrier. You got indemnifications. You got to cap that shit. Insurance. You got to limit it down to only what's needed. You may have more, but maybe you don't want all of it listed in there. Talk to your insurance broker. Come up with an SOP. Get that stuff streamlined so you can move through red lines really quickly and everybody's on the same page. And then number 5, of course, is cargo claims. So what happens and how are the parties going to act when the goods are damaged, when that $500,000 shipment is completely damaged? How does everybody want to act? First of all, I cap that shit. Every contract should have a cap. Every one of them. So most of the time I say $100,000 per full truckload, something like that. Consult with a lawyer, talk to your cargo insurer, make sure there aren't any exclusions you need to know about. In your own cargo insurance, make sure the shipper is not running goods or giving you goods that are commonly excluded under most carriers' insurance policies. There's a lot to dig into there and think about. All of these things apply to every truckload transaction you're working with. So once you get comfortable with what you're covered, and if you're a broker and you understand what carriers cover and don't cover, then you know what your SOP is here. One tip for success when it comes to your insurance company and the insurance that you have, The best tip is to pretend you don't have insurance. And for those of you who've been down the road of making a claim with your cargo insurance or your auto insurance, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because you make a claim and you're like, phew, good thing we had insurance. And then the next year, they jack up your premiums, just like our home insurance or auto insurance. You want to pretend you don't have any insurance, which means we focus on what does the carrier have for insurance and how can we limit the damages if something goes wrong, and how can we be careful that the shipper's not writing into our contracts crazy stuff that has to do. Being ready for anything that can go wrong. There's got to be some give and take here between you and the shipper with these cargo claims. And guys and gals, sometimes they give you a contract and they say, sign it. And sometimes the revenue's worth it, or you're trying to get some customers in the door, so it's worth it. Just, make a reminder, because this is part of the SOP, make a reminder in your calendar to review your contracts and the risks and how much revenue you're making off the customers so that you can cancel contracts later on. If you signed a contract with a lot of risk and they're only giving you 1 or 2 shipments every month, you need to maybe think about terminating the contract. The revenue's not worth the risk. You constantly are going to be revisiting contracts and thinking through these things. Do you guys see how easy this is? It's easy to standardize this process. So if you're getting mad about your contract being redlined too much, and it's a pretty standard contract, you can go back to this video and think about your procedures and meet with your counsel and be a team. Don't let legal be this big black hole or this office over there. You don't know what's going on, because you all should know what's going on. There should be meetings talking about, here are our contracts that are pending, we haven't reviewed yet, and why haven't we reviewed them yet? And the team should be prioritizing the contracts and adding deadlines. It should be a team situation. For those of you out there who say, Cassandra, what happens if the shipper doesn't have a contract? First of all, you should definitely talk to a transportation lawyer, because there's a theory out there for brokers only, and it's a risky one, but it's don't have a contract at all. It's fine as a broker. You are only arranging for transportation. There's some risks there with your operations, other things like that. But let me give you a quick and easy answer. Have terms and conditions. You can also look and put them online and incorporate them into your signature for your credit app, saying I agree to all terms and conditions at www.cassandralogistics.com. Have a lawyer help you out with that, but that's very easy. And nobody has to mess around with contracts anymore. The other thing is you can go to TIA and ask them for their standard contracts. They have really good ones that you can use. And most of the time, though, when you're talking about those big customers, they're going to give you like a 35-page transportation contract. And you're going to have to know, as a team, what are we going to do with these 5 provisions that mostly come up? Bigger corporations will have things like auditing, and they'll have other types of laws that they can't. It's a pain in the butt, but they got to put it in there, and the big shippers will know that as well. So there's give and take there. But as long as you have procedures written out with flow charts, and it's a lot of work up front, but you'll appreciate how quick and easy it is to get contracts through, and everybody has standard expectations. One thing I had a legal department do one time was to time themselves and tell me, how long does it take you to go through standard transportation contract? And once we knew how long it took for me to at least do the initial red lines, we were able to calculate how, if you send me 10 contracts, how long it's going to take for me to get through those 10 contracts. Do we need more people to help and start training to review contracts? So you guys can start to see that this is it's a give and take process. You got to talk to your insurance broker. You got to write out the SOPs, and you have to consistently work with your legal department. They shouldn't be a entity over here on this side of the business that doesn't. Another quick couple tips when it comes to cargo claims. For those, we have a few minutes left, so I'm going to toss in some nerdy tips for everybody. With cargo claims, the things that will make your life easier. Watch out for terms that immediately make you liable for the cargo where you can't have any defense. So if you show up and the seal's broken, we don't care what the goods look like, you're going to pay for it. Try to cut down on that kind of stuff. How about if we think the goods are adulterated, you have to pay for it. Well, what does adulterated mean? Shouldn't we have a third party look at the goods? That could be a lot of money. So that type of contractual term is a good one to identify and bring it up with, hey team, what do we want to do here? Are you guys going to be paying for this stuff? If it's a cheap shipment, fine, whatever. But if we're talking expensive lobster, food, fish, especially food, you should be on the heads up about that. And then processing. Cargo claims processing. Make sure you have deadlines in there that you approve of how long it takes for you to process a cargo claim working with the carrier or you're the carrier itself. And how many days until you deny, pay, or ask for more information for the claim. Try to make it 180 days because cargo claims, full truckload, take a long time to process. So if the shipper's contract says 30 days, that is not achievable. And then you got to pay for a claim because you didn't meet the 30-day deadline. Blah. So that is a golden thing because shippers will put in, you have 30 days to pay or deny the claim. And that's not as fair. Try to switch that to like 180 days. The other thing that I like to put in is that Carmack Amendment, Google that, governs cargo claim liability at all times. No special or consequential damages. That's very important. You can Google that. There's tons of articles on that. And then the third piece is freight claims should be processed pursuant to federal regulations. If you just take those 3 little things and you're a contract manager and you're learning, re-listen to this video and rethink about everything. And you can always reach out to me if you need questions. I get a lot of emails, so I try to help people when I can. But again, it's always best to hire a transportation lawyer. There's a lot of good ones out there. TIA has recommendations for a lot of good transportation lawyers. So we've been through how to set up your legal department or your new legal department or your contract manager for success, which is expectations, authorizations, and standardizations. There's visibility into the contract process. There's engagement with salespeople are participating in prioritizing contracts and understanding how long it takes to get through the contracting process. Putting terms and conditions online and incorporating them into your credit checks, and then having visibility into the entire process. And write all this out, you guys, so that everybody's on the same page. You can have KPIs for your legal department. Now, here are my 5 rules when it comes to contracts, at 5 high level, right? Don't pretend to be a carrier. Don't control a carrier. That's for brokers, both of those. Try your hardest, obviously. Sometimes you have to sign the contract. 3, cap indemnification and narrow it. 4, meet with your insurance broker about the insurance provisions and understand what insurance is okay and what's not okay. Try to limit how much insurance you are giving to them or putting in the contract. You don't need to put all your insurance in there. And then cargo. Cap that shit. If anything, you do anything, you put a cap on your cargo liability. You don't want that to be wide open. Y'all, this has been a great episode. I hope everybody finds it very helpful, and this helps people streamline the redline process and the contracts. Take care. We will see you guys next week.